Thomas Essen has one that's really interesting. He says, is there a historical event or subject, especially of the obscure variety, that you feel could be ripe for a movie or miniseries treatment, if only its compelling story potential was more widely known? For me, it's the Aleutian Islands campaign of World War I. Note to self, look up the Aleutian Islands campaign of World War II. Yes, I do. And there's this. Years ago, my wife read the book about the Monuments Men, the group of people tasked with saving famous pieces of artwork in Europe during World War II. And my wife was like, oh, this is really ripe material for a movie. I think it's great. Someone should write a screenplay. And then like a year later, George Clooney came out with Monuments Men. So like sometimes when these things hit the zeitgeist, they hit hard and fast. This story I'm about to tell you, I think, is a phenomenal miniseries idea, and it's born and bred here in San Francisco. So when the San Francisco earthquake of April 1906 hit San Francisco and burned some very large percentage of San Francisco to the ground, this story comes out of that, because one of the buildings on Market Street that burned down was the California Academy of Sciences. And it wasn't a new museum, but within the scheme of museums being long-lived institutions, it was still a young institution. I found this wonderful article. There's some great characters here. The director, Leverett Mills Loomis, left downtown San Francisco in a panic. This is the earthquake fire. His response to the disaster was to stuff a single taxidermied bird specimen into each trouser pocket before bolting to safety from the Cal Academy building. Hilarious. But to the rescue comes an amazing woman, botanist from Nob Hill, Alice Eastwood. She has a quick breakfast, runs down to the Academy building, sees the collapsed marble stairs, walks on the very edge of them up to the 6th floor, and she manages to save 1,500 original specimens from the museum. And that comprises almost all of what was saved from the San Francisco fire, to the best of my knowledge. And that's not even the best part of the story, because about a year and a half before, give or take, Cal Academy had decided to put itself on the map. It was planting a flag that it was an important institution. They felt like they were a scrappy institution that weren't getting respect, and they launched an expedition to the Galapagos Islands. And they sent their ship. I spent a few minutes trying to figure out the name of the ship, and I think it's the Academy, but it might have been the nickname of the ship. But they took this ship, let's say it was called the Academy. They took it to Galapagos. And at this point in time, Galapagos was world famous, right? Charles Darwin's theory of evolution had already come out. The Galapagos were an important part of that story. And at the time in the early 20th century, when Cal Academy sent their expedition, it was thought that the specimens of the Galapagos were rapidly disappearing. Like the interest meant that things were going extinct. The research had to be done now or it was going to go away. And so Cal Academy sent their expedition, and they were over there in the Galapagos. And they got word that their home museum had burned to the ground, destroying almost everything except what Alice Eastwood and the 2 taxidermied birds that Leverett Mills Loomis had saved. And so the Cal Academy's expedition ship turned around and started coming home. And this is 1905. There's no Panama Canal. They come back around the Horn. It takes them months and months to get home. And when they get home, they're the museum, because they came back from the Galapagos with 70,000 specimens. I believe in one of my notes, it was the very first survey of botany, of flora, systematic survey of flora on the Galapagos. So the Cal Academy ship comes back, and here's what I love. I love the fact that the museum burns to the ground, and then it turns out, well, it didn't burn to the ground because part of the museum is in the Galapagos. Wait a minute, that's not part of the museum. They have almost all the specimens that the museum currently has. So that's the museum. So in a way, the museum being destroyed in San Francisco teleports it and deposits it at the Galapagos, where they realize, holy cow, now we are captaining the Cal Academy Museum. Let's get it home. And they park in the bay, and the boat in the bay becomes the San Francisco Cal Academy Museum for the next 2 years while they rebuild the building. That transposition of institution, I think, is really fascinating. I think that is, yeah. Anybody who watches this channel at all knows how much I love objects and the stories they have. And the identities that they reveal, both your own and the histories that they're talking about. This one is a really unique one of this amazing institution that humans like to build, taxonomies of the explorations of the world. And this important thing gets destroyed, and then everyone realizes it's not destroyed. I know I'm repeating the same story again, but I really find that a compelling tale. And I'm sure there are wonderful and amazing characters all the way through this story. It is a great tale about humans' need to not only taxonomize the world, but to share that knowledge and to build upon that. So I just think it's a fantastic story. If you want to take it and run with it and write a screenplay, go and do. There's tons of books on it. It's not a super obscure story if you're in the museum world. But yeah, I think it deserves a miniseries treatment. Go for it. Go for it and write it. I would love to see that made into a series. J. Nathan Simmons asks, do you ever go into thrift stores and get inspiration for a build or inspiration in general? Yeah, I do. I do that all the time. Okay, all the time. I do that about every 2 months. We have a terrific antique mall here in San Francisco called Stuff. It's on Valencia Street under the freeway. Over near Market. And it's a great store, and I'm a particular fan of antiques malls for thrift shopping as a high return on your time investment. Because antiques malls are, booth after booth after booth after booth of stuff that's been consigned by the people, but it's being managed by the space that is renting them the booth space. So it's not like someone's in every booth. It's more just like this gymnasium full of random crap of all sorts of different categories. And there might be the one guy who collects nothing but Hulk lunchboxes, and another person and it's all green mid-century glass. I find those also a high return on my love of objects and their narratives. So I spend lots of time going through the cabinets and looking, and I only buy something like every third trip. I think the stuff people would tell you that. I only buy something like every third time I go, but when I do, it's fantastic. Yeah, antique malls, high return. It's funny, I was just reminded of the fact that Michael Stevens and I, Michael Stevens from Vsauce, and I built a science stage show that we toured around the world back in 2017 for a few months. And when we were first traveling together, we had this very funny moment in which we discovered we both did the same thing upon arriving in a new city, which is dial up Atlas Obscura and see what cool, weird stuff there was to do in that city. Atlas Obscura has been my go-to site for strange other city shenanigans for 15 years. God, actually now, yeah, 15 plus years. Fantastic site. They have a book. They probably have more than one book at this point. Wonderful people. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to support us even further, you can by becoming a tested member. Details are, of course, below, but it includes all sorts of perks, and we're building them all the time. You get advanced word and behind-the-scenes photos of some of our projects. Questions, you get to ask direct questions during my live streams, and we have some members-only videos, including the Adam real-time series of unbroken, unedited shots of me working here in the shop. They are weirdly meditative. Thank you guys so much. I'll see you on the next one.